Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show, episode number 157. Just like the steak sauce. Is that like the steak sauce? No, that was just 57. So we're 100 more.
We're 100 better than a steak sauce.
Than a steak sauce. Dan, we're back.
Eric,
again.
How are you doing?
Another week. Just hot off the presses. Hot off Friday's episode of the old Doctor Who show.
It's
back
almost like
again.
we're seeing each other every week now. Yeah, this was an interesting thing. Before we jump into our discussion of 73 yards,
Yes.
What's going on with you?
I got mice. I got so many mice.
Okay, I was not expecting that.
Yeah, so on Wednesday, my wife was like, there's a mouse just ran across the floor of the basement. Now, we've had mice before. It's not a big deal. So I have traps,
Right.
the catch and release traps, right? We're not animals. So I caught one, and it was like, okay. And then I took it to this little woods and let it go. And there's probably people listening being like, well.
Did you take it upstate? You took it upstate?
I took it
farm?
upstate. Yeah. No, I took it to a nice little place. And then the next day, caught another one, right? Released
Are
that
you sure
one.
it was a different one? Are you sure it was a different one?
Yeah, it was a different one. Oh, it was
Okay.
a different one. And then we let it go. The next day, 3 baby mice, real young mice, were crawling across the floor, obviously starving. So I probably released the mom or the dad or the older brother and the dad or the mom.
Hey, everybody, remember like 30 seconds ago when Eric said, I'm not a monster?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I turned out I was a monster. So then
it was all along.
We thought they were done. So we spent a lot of time Googling how do you take care of baby mice. So between Casey and I, my wife Casey, we went out, we got like kitten replacement formula, and we got a heating pad, and we got them back to where they need to be. And then it was just a lot of calling around trying to find rehab places that'll take mice, because a lot don't. Because they don't live very long, right? So I did find a place about 2 hours away and drove and delivered them to the Woodlands Animal Rehab, I think, in Pittstown. So if you're from that area or if you work there or volunteer there, thank you. That was great. So I got to deliver the baby mice. I could even drop a picture of the baby mice into the show notes.
As soon as you and Casey drove away, dust in the rear view mirror, they're just throwing the mice over their shoulders into a field.
Well,
who rehabs mice and for what reason?
Yeah, so they rehab all sorts of animals.
I mean, God bless them.
Yes.
First of all,
so they, their mission for all of it is to get them back out there into the woods, living on their own. Now, some of these places, they rehab snakes. They rehab foxes.
Sure.
They eat mice. So if it's a situation where they're rehabbing, I don't want to think of it this way, but if that is the case, I would much rather a fox eat the mouse than the mouse just die or be buried in the yard with a ceremony and I say a few words for the mouse. So I'm going to pretend that the scenario ends with them being raised and then they get let out and they have adventures and everything's fine.
Absolutely.
But if it ended up being food for some other animal, now they say they don't do that, so I'm not saying they do that, but that is certainly what some places do. And then I found another one last night. So we got rid of that one. So now we're up to 6. 3 babies, 3 adults. I hope it's over. I was just in the crawl space, literally in the crawl space from right before we started. So I found a dead one. So it's just a mess. I can't wait for it to be over. But I love animals, so I'm not gonna put a trap down.
I think these mice should make a cameo appearance in the third Goblin book.
They could. Oh, I thought you were going to say in this podcast because they
might do the podcast too.
One is going to go scurrying across the background.
I see. You just said like the mice going on adventures, and like that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh God!
So
if
you Will could talk about it.
Oh yeah, I would write a new book. Oh, already for like a new book, I was like, oh, this would be great. Like 3 baby mice in some liberal couple's house, and they don't know what to do, and they release the mom, and now they release the babies into the woods overnight, hoping they'll find the mom, and then the brother dies, and then it's just the 2 of them, and they're in the woods trying to find their parents. And so yeah, there's definitely something there.
It's coming.
I also always wanted to do like a post-apocalyptic. Well, I shouldn't talk about this stuff because I'm basically throwing these ideas out before I. So I will scratch all of that. I'm not going to tell you about.
I'm taking notes as we go here because I'm absolutely going to sell these ideas.
Yeah. So Dan, how have you been? You know about my mouse problems.
Yeah, no, I'm up in the woods. We got lots of animals for the dogs to bark at, which is great. You know, nothing going on here except it's just a beautiful countryside, beautiful day.
You probably have mice.
What a day to wake up and watch Doctor Who again this morning.
Okay, so you've watched it twice.
Sunshine.
Well, then,
I
don't have anything else. I'm excited to talk about.
I'm very excited to talk about this.
47 yards.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, 47 yards is the one I watched.
The whole 9 yards. The whole 9 yards.
9 yards. The remake with the original one was with
Matthew Perry, right?
No, the remake was with. Is it with Matthew Perry? I thought the remake was with I can't remember Burt Reynolds' name. Burt Reynolds was in the original, right? And then the remake was with Adam Sandler in it.
Whole 9 yards, the 2000 film. Bruce Willis and Matthew Perry.
Okay, so you're correct. I don't know why I was thinking. Well, I think I'm mixing up several movies. Is it a remake of a movie with Burt Reynolds? No, that's the movie I think with Adam Sandler where they're like playing football in prison. It's not the whole 9 yards. It's the longest yard.
Longest yard. That's right.
Yes. Okay. So I mixed up my films.
That's too bad.
We're not here to talk about
the Bruce Willis erasure that I just did here. I'm sorry about that.
As if Hudson Hawk never happened. Yes. Let's
honestly an underrated film. Okay. Sorry.
I saw Hudson Hawk in the movie theater. I remember.
Oh wait, no. I'm thinking of the Hudsucker Proxy. Which was film.
Coen Brothers movie. Yes, that is.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
For kids. Fantastic.
It's really
all right.
Really good.
Hit the button. Shake the crime stick.
Shake that crime stick.
Shake the crime stick. Forget I said anything.
No. Tell me what happened.
No. What is this? Oh, it's a circle. Someone made this. I'm sorry, man. I am sorry.
Oh, it looks like something made by children, doesn't it? Lucky Charms and bird schools. Hey, there's little messages, look. I miss you.
Okay, Dan, this is 73 yards. This is written by Russell T. Davies, and it was directed by Dylan Holmes Williams.
Okay.
The doctor and Millie, Ruby, not Millie, Ruby. I'm using the actress's name instead. Yeah,
sure.
The doctor and
Shooty and Millie.
The doctor.
Go to Wales.
We're gonna get through this.
Nope. This is going to be a whole
doctor
episode.
And Ruby arrive in Wales, and once again, the doctor has stepped in something he shouldn't, and all heck breaks loose. She's separated from the doctor, and there's a fairy circle. It's fine. We're going to talk so in depth about this particular episode, and I feel like anything I say in the synopsis will play the hand of all the stuff that I want to talk about. So, Dan,
my favorite thing is you just petering out halfway through a summary because you're just like, let's just talk
what's
about
the
it
point?
Instead.
I couldn't think of anything funny to say, and what am I going to say? What am I just going to talk about? The whole thing. We're just going to talk about the whole thing right now.
Let's find out what you're going to say. All right. So do you want to know how I felt about this episode? Yes, I'll tell you how I felt about this.
I swear to God, I had my reading glasses when we started this thing. And
oh my God!
They're on the floor.
Old man Grissom can't find his reading glasses.
73 yards. When I was young, it was 74 yards. All right, let's go.
Let's make Britain great again. This was such a fun story. I enjoyed everything about it, even though it doesn't make any sense from what I can tell. Or it does make a lot of sense, but I don't. Anyway, it was fun. It was a great story. It was really interesting to have Millie as kind of a one-hander. Like, she was just doing the entire thing the whole way through. We had so little of the doctor. What we got of the doctor was super fun. That outfit, them coming out of the TARDIS with the sunrise and Wales, and
Beautiful.
That was absolutely breathtaking. But what a fun episode for Ruby. Apparently, however, no, or not however, but like especially if I'm understanding this correctly, this was the first story she filmed, which is a hard thing for her to like. I need to figure out what it's like to be a companion, what the Doctor's all about. I've had some adventures, but I don't know any of that yet. I just need to do this I need to carry this entire story.
Sure, that's a lot of pressure.
And even like if you think about the scenes that she has with Carla.
No, hold on, wait,
mom,
let's
like,
pause for a commercial break.
Okay.
This episode is brought to you by. When you say it's her first episode of this particular season, or even predating the Goblin episode.
Church on Ruby Road is recorded is produced later.
Oh, okay. So it really is like.
So I read this
on everything.
Read this on the TODWS Wikia, also in the behind the scenes featurette that they have on YouTube. Russell T Davis mentions like the first shot that Millie has is I think 30-year-old or 40-year-old Ruby standing at the window looking out with the wine glass. Like that was her first on camera. Amazing. Like so given all of that, like she nailed this. Yeah. The tone, everything about it. She's wonderful. So
I assumed it was a wig.
So much fun.
I assumed it was a wig, but was it not a wig? Was that her real hair, and that's why they shot it first and then cut her hair?
Oh no, those were wigs.
Okay,
Do you wear wigs?
No, I do not.
Have you worn wigs?
No, I have not.
Will you wear wigs?
Maybe.
When will you wear wigs?
When she's 25, that wig is bonkers. That was terrible. The 30-year-old wig and the 40-year-old, the 30-year-old wig, great. That was she should have kept. Anyway, we'll do the wig cast later. Anyway. So let me just say, overall, loved it. Loved the putting all the pieces together, the cameo appearances. All this was good. We can get into the details, but I first want to find out overall, Eric, what was your take on this story?
Okay, for me, Dan, I will say this. A good idea, like an interesting hook, like when you deal with a high concept story and there is a unique hook, that's always kind of cool. But when you can marry that hook or that unique concept to a human emotion and it acts as a metaphor for that, it elevates a story from sort of an interesting, fun adventure to just like an emotional, perfect story that connects with humans on a really deep and meaningful level. So this was easily my favorite story of anything we've done in the new show. New show meaning the Ncuti Gatwa. Yep, but it's in my top 10 of all of New Who, starting with Rose.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I would put this story up against like Human Nature is another story that I feel really connects.
Wonderful. Yep.
In a deeply meaningful way. So for me,
Turn Left, in a way, Turn Left is another one of those that's near the top. It's the one where
probably, but Donna, I don't remember.
Donna has the thing on her back, and she chooses not to make the right turn to go and meet the Doctor. She makes the left turn and never meets the Doctor.
Yeah.
So it's a very similar story in that it's very companion heavy, very Doctor light, and an alternate timeline. And that's near the top of my list of New Who stories. And this is right there. I'm sorry. I'm so excited that you like this.
Oh my God. I love, so. Now first of all, like fans of the show know I love Dune.
Oh wait, what?
Oh, you don't know about the Dune connection?
I've never heard of. Okay.
There's a huge Dune connection in this story, but I loved this story before the Dune. I
can't tell if you're. Are you serious?
Okay.
All right.
Well, I can't wait. Should we just start from the beginning, or should I just tell you what the connection is?
Let's start from the beginning.
Once you hear it, you'll be like, "Oh my God, I love her." Okay,
let's start from the beginning because I think
a lot of
this stuff kind of builds on each other. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
I felt it almost like we're like emotionally like wrecked by the end of it. Like it was like, because of all the abandonment issues and how that feeds the distance, and how as people we think if you get to know the real you, they're going to run away, and you keep that hidden, and you can't have relationships, and you see like her literally dating. And obviously, there's a story element to it, but if you look at this whole thing as a metaphor, it's really sad. and the bit about not wanting to get on the plane and going on a boat, and how that for me was like suicidal ideation of not really accepting yourself, and like all of those layers that were in this thing, and then you realize you've got yourself the whole time, and you're never alone, and all of that stuff was it was perfect. But yeah, so let's start, I guess, start from the beginning, because I say let's divide it into 3 parts, right? Or 4 parts, right? So we have like the whole, because it's kind of like 4 different stories. You've got like the folk horror fairy circle bit that takes place in Wales. Then you have her living on her own, trying to figure out life. Then you have her once she has a mission, and then you have her final days of life. Yeah. So starting with the fairy circle, Welsh folk horror, how are you feeling about all of that?
Yeah. So having them, the opening shot, opening the TARDIS on the cliff sides of Wales, absolutely stunning, beautiful. The 2 of them are just such a delight. Amazing. This is like their first kind of working. Anyway, leaving that aside, really terrific. The Doctor gives that mention of the war between the land and the sea.
Yep.
Which we get referred back to later later into the story when they're in the pub, and the older patron is talking about this liminal space between the land and sea.
Yes.
So immediately it's conjuring the idea of Wild Blue Yonder. The Doctor's at the edge of the universe, the salt that he does, and that's letting in all these superstitions and fairy tales and whatever. That's all so intertwined in this story. It's really coming to a head. Maybe not exactly in the story, but it's building all of that throughout this story, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's especially the opening sets all these expectations too about what this story is going to be.
Right.
That it is going to be this like folk horror witchcrafty story, and I guess we should talk about witchcraft and the supernatural and how that's seeping into this universe. But this particular story is about like playing with expectations. So your expectations when you go into the bar is, oh, here's a group of eclectic characters that are going to be stuck in this bar. This ghost woman's going to be outside. How are they going to figure out how to overrule that? And it's not, because it's like that one theme of being confronted with something you can't understand, and you build a story around it to explain it. And you see that, over and over, which is what happens to people that have those kind of issues. And why don't they like me? Or why'd my mom leave? And then you build all of these stories to explain why those things are happening. And it happens in each one of those sections, right? From the folk horror thing that it's, what is it? Not Mad Max. It's
Mad Jack.
Mad Jack. To, her putting it all into, oh my God, if I just stop this prime minister, it's all going to be over. And it's not.
Right.
But yeah, I loved the first stuff. So I mean,
I love the way that you're breaking
the bar
it down.
was fantastic.
4 different parts.
Too.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get through like the first part. I think is a really smart way of dividing this up. So everything up through.
We got to talk about the hype.
Her deciding to start jumping in, when the story starts moving forward in time. So everything up to there is the first part. We do, just not to be like too tedious about like the plot points, but I guess I wonder how significant it is that it's the Doctor who steps on the fairy circle. And breaks it. Well, it feels like that would be a thing a companion would do, and the Doctor would come and save her. Sort of thing. Like, but it was him. He stepped on it and broke it.
This is not my idea. I wish I knew where this was. It was like some film account on Twitter that I follow, or TV media account. I should have did better research. But they brought up the fact that the Doctor is the one that steps on it. In the previous episode, the Doctor is the one that steps on the landmine. So,
and he also steps on the butterfly.
And she steps on the butterfly.
Does he? She steps on the butterfly.
She steps on the butterfly. But
there's a lot of stepping on things. There's stepping.
Right, which feeds into the idea of coincidence, right? And coincidence is such a thing that's repeated over and over and over. Obviously, we have like, what's her face? Susan Twist. We're going to get to her.
Coming up again. Yep.
But, did the Doctor step on it because it is this coincidence thing that literally the last episode he stepped on a bomb? That was the whole episode. He steps on this thing, and that's the whole episode. I don't know if that
put that together. That's
I did not put that together. That was
it.
someone else's observation.
Okay,
but it makes sense, right?
That's really good.
In the Ruby Church or whatever it is,
Church on Ruby Ridge.
Church on Ruby Ridge. they talk about how the goblins are attracted to coincidence, right? That's what brings them out. That's why they take the baby. And in Space Baby, he's like, we keep getting put around babies. And again, it's all babies that are orphans in some way or foundlings like that. That is a theme that's going through it. But yeah, was that a coincidence on purpose? Because it's not a doctor thing that he would normally do. It would be a companion thing.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's great, because I was thinking about all of this in the context of superstition, which we'll talk about again, but bleeding into the world, but not thinking about coincidence. Like, you're right, absolutely, the goblin thing. Totally forgot about that. And then, this misstep that he has. That's really fascinating. Really. Anyway, so that's great. So he steps in the fairy circle. He's immediately like, no. What is this? Like, I can't tell if he knows what's
I think he knows what it is.
Not at first.
I don't know if he knows the ramifications of what happens, but he's like aware that it is a fairy circle, and that something bad could happen. She starts reading it.
She reads two scrolls. Reading the
scrolls.
One that says,
I think he's off camera, so he could very well be gone at that point.
I think he's gone.
Because he doesn't try to stop her, although he does the second time.
Right. So the two scrolls, one says, I miss you. The other says, rest in peace, Mad Jack. I'm not sure what the I miss you is about, because that comes back later as well.
Is that literally missing the doctor, who is gone at that point? People are leaving flowers, and no one knows why they're leaving flowers all the way at the very
end. Would that mean they would already be leaving them before? Which
right.
is fine. It's a time travel show.
It's a strange closed loop. I'm not sure what that is, or if it's literally her message to the doctor. She misses the doctor. I don't know. And there's a bigger thing about explanations. I'm so glad there aren't any. Like, these are the types of stories I like, where a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've seen a small percentage of people complaining that it's not explained, or there's not an explanation, but the whole story is about crafting stories to explain unexplained situations. Even the Brigadier, she's the Brigadier. Is that the title? I know.
Well, she's
Lethbridge
not. She's
Stewart.
the head of unit.
Okay.
I don't know what she calls herself.
She literally says,
we see something inexplicable and invent the rules to make it work. Mankind saw the sunrise and created God, or we saw the arrival of a Sontaran, one or the other.
It's all about that. So you can't explain it, because the whole thing is built on that.
I wouldn't want it explained. Like, for example, like not everyone. So many people on the internet is like, well, what did the old woman say? I don't actually care. I wouldn't want it to be said. Leaving that aside, though, kind of jumping ahead a little bit meta on this, I like that part that is unexplained. What I don't like as much is when there's, for example, why 73 yards? It's such a specific thing that's repeated so often. Like, that feels
I guarantee it has a meaning to Russell T Davies. I was thinking, like, I don't know anything about sports. And there's a whole scene that takes place on a football field.
Yep.
Is 73 yards something in football that means something? Like, I don't know, soccer, football, whatever. I don't know any football, American.
One of our
European
listeners, I believe.
I'm sure there's something to 73.
It was almost exactly 666 meters or something. So like the 666 of it, maybe. I don't know.
Oh,
but
okay.
But anyway,
I don't know.
Again, I agree with you. The ambiguity is where all the interesting stuff happens, because you get to fill it in your head. So I like that, what you're saying there with this. With the being like very literal about this, though, when Doctor steps in the fairy circle, she's reading the scrolls that say, I miss you, rest in peace, Mad Jack. Right before then, he had mentioned Roger Ap William, and then steps on it, and then she reads a scroll that says, I miss you. Maybe that's her, I miss the doctor, rest in peace, Mad Jack. Like, these things, is it one of these things of Ruby's power manifesting? Like she does with the snow and everything happens. He said this thing, and then that made what was in the fairy circle. So I miss you, doctors, like, her mind kind of put it there. Rest in peace, Mad Jack. She doesn't actually know that he's Mad Jack, but that is how that all plays out with this. I don't think there's exact answers here, but it's again, is it cause and effect? Is it coincidence? Which direction is it going? Is the coincidence making Ruby say? Anyway, interesting stuff that I think we're going to get more of as this kind of wraps up this season.
And while we're talking, I just did like a lookup of the number 73, like what could... Yep. And this particular article from Mathnasium says math professors prove that the number 73 is a special number.
73 is the 21st prime number. Its mirror, 37, is the 12th, and its mirror, 21, is the product of multiplying, hang on to your hats, 7 and 3.
On the Mathnasium site or the Kabbalah site? I'm not sure. Is this a numerology site where...
honestly, I was thinking it was going to be something like magic with a K, like kind of math meaning. Right. But this is actually because I guess on the show Big Bang Theory, they had talked about the number 73 meaning something as well, and there's some kind of uniqueness. And this is an article about talking about whatever Sheldon Cooper had said about 73. So there is something to the number 73, mathematically and otherwise. But
perfect.
Let's talk about we get another appearance of Susan Twist, right? As the hitchhiker.
Just one last thing.
Okay.
And I know I'm being very literal about everything that's happening. The doctor disappears off camera, or off camera.
The camera
gone.
Goes to a close up of her, right? Yes, and we don't.
Do you think he ran into the TARDIS and locked it behind him?
No.
Do you think he just? Well, okay.
I don't. But personally, I don't think.
Do you think he just disappeared?
I don't even think he. I think that timeline froze, and you get a hint of that when we talk to Lethbridge Stewart. What's her first name? The head of unit.
Yeah.
I should know.
Kate.
Recurring.
It's Kate.
Kate.
Yes.
Kate says,
I think this timeline might be suspended along your event.
No, I think at the moment that the circle breaks, that particular timeline is frozen or collected for garbage, or however the timeline
garbage
system works.
Okay.
But yes, I don't think he ran and hid. I think he's gone. I think we are in a different, I keep talking about this stupid collapsing ruptured timeline thing.
Absolutely.
But it's another one of these. And we have proof in this episode that not only are there multiple timelines, UNIT is aware of them.
Yep.
So that's
the only reason why I
thing.
think it doesn't actually matter how he disappears. I think the thing that was interesting to me was that her key fit the lock but didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, like the abandonment theme that runs through this. They find out, they talk to the old woman who is her from the future and hear something that makes them all run away. Like, we don't quite get that with the doctor, which is interesting. I just don't know why.
And in a way, right? And I think it runs on dream logic, right? Like this whole thing, this entire thing could very well be in her head completely, which is why you can turn a key lock but it won't open, or you can yell and no sound comes out, or all of that stuff could be upstairs in her head, and not actually real. And so that all right, so
I'm skipping ahead. Susan Twist, we got her.
Yes, so we get a very interesting comment from her.
We actually just skipped over the fact that we see the woman for the first time, the old woman.
Okay, yes, so then we see the old woman, and she's doing what looks like sign language, or ASL, which is American Sign Language. I'm not sure if it's the same.
I don't think she is.
It seems like she's doing this kind of thing, and I was like, is she saying "don't step"? My daughter knows sign language, so I tried to get her to interpret, and there wasn't enough, and she did. She couldn't make heads or tails of it.
What's kind of interesting to me about this is you never see the old woman in one shot do the entire loop.
No, it stops.
Sign. It keeps cutting each time. So I had to watch the different parts to put together, but she does do her left hand over her heart, then her hands down at the side, then she shrugs both palms up. The hands rub,
right?
Then she brings it under her chin, and then hands back again. It's again. I want to know what that means, but I'm also totally fine with not knowing.
Right?
I want to know why that. It's interesting.
I still want to look in it, because it does feel a lot like, because I mentioned my daughter does ASL, and she's always
to communicate.
And that's a lot of the language is like that. Like in those types of gestures.
When you say dream logic, though, that is a really good way of putting this together, because it makes sense. It makes 100% sense, but you can't explain why it does. Why is she always 73 feet or 73 yards away? Why is she following her forever? Why at the end is she how does it resolve in this way? It doesn't make any sense, except it feels totally correct. It's
right.
I love that you said that.
I have to, treating this as a metaphor again with this is her. This is that she's always keeping her real true self at a distance from everyone in her life,
including
because
herself.
she's been abandoned so many times. And like that fear that, why did my parents leave me? It's something about me. And if people get to know and even if you're not adopted, I think a lot of people have that thought that if people try to get to know the real you, they'll run away. And that's sort of what happens. And the opposite is, if you're trying to run towards something, it's going to push people away. So there's that like push-pull dynamic to
right.
that kind of relationship. Which
just to add on to that, totally true. And she can't even see herself clearly. She tries, with the camera, can't focus on it either. Like in her present tense, she can't understand her future. Like all of that
perfect.
Works so well.
It's so good. And like those little dating scenes again in the second part that we'll get into.
Yeah.
And on its face value, yeah, sure that she's got that thing over there. But if you look at it like just someone trying to connect with people and failing.
Absolutely.
It's perfect
because she's focused on something. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, we'll move.
So let's get to Twist though. We got to go to Susan.
We get a little bit of snowfall.
We do get some snow,
again,
and then it stops.
Which
it
was
again.
cold, but
that's her.
No, it does. It snows a second. It snows a second.
Oh, it does
in this. Yeah, but anyway, in this one,
when does it snow a second time? I don't remember. I believe you, but I don't remember. Was it before or after she solves the?
It's still in the first
Prime
part.
Minister.
It's after Carla locks her out of the house,
because she does make a point of saying it never snowed again. Now I'm assuming that it snowed like regular snow, but she never made it snow again.
After
the end when she's telling the nurse, like I used to make it snow, and it's how we treat.
That's
older
nice.
people and like it's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Susan Twist.
Susan Twist shows up. This one is the first time that we get the acknowledgement of like, have I met you before?
Yes, they've recognized them,
which is great because the hiker replies, "I don't think so. Have you?" And she says it in a way that you could be like, "Have you?" Or have you? Like it's ambiguous in a beautiful way.
That dialogue is perfect.
Love
because
it.
Not all of it, but most of the dialogue that she says to her can be interpreted one way or another way. Like when she says, "Okay, I'll go talk to her," but then after it, both of you get inside. Both of you, because she's the same person and she's literally talking to.
Yeah, maybe.
You could just say, "Oh, she just
maybe
both
she knows
of you,"
what's
like
going
she
on.
doesn't know who that. Oh, I think she 100% knows what's going on, and I think. We'll get to that later because we're also going to have another appearance by a
fan favorite.
Flood. I feel like it's the Black Guardian, White Guardian thing could very well be happening with the two of these.
Happening.
But we'll get to that. But that line where she's like, "Both of you get inside," like perfect because at first pass it's meaningless. It's just like something you would say, and then if you watch it again, you're like, "Oh my god, it's."
Did you have? I had a moment of relief. Not relief. I don't know what it was, but when she first runs into the hiker and Ruby asks her, "That woman over there, can you see her?" And then she says, "Of course I can."
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know if she would be able to, so it kind of like okay, this is what's going on here. But then because it's Susan Twist playing the hiker, I'm like, wait, but that doesn't actually mean anything because is she part of all of this?
Yes.
And she doesn't. I'm reiterating basically the same point you just made. The way that these things kind of can be read in different ways and wrap around each other was really super fun. But now we get and then she talks. This is the first time we see her talk to the old woman. We can't hear what she's saying. We get the whispering voices in the background, so something spooky is going on. She goes and looks. The hiker turns, looks at her, screams, and run away. Okay, so I don't know how that plays into the whole Susan Twist of it all, like this recurring character who now gets caught up in this and gets this horror and runs away. I guess it doesn't really matter because the whole thing resolves at the end. And
right,
collapses,
and if you treat it as a dream, then yes, she's not. It doesn't matter if she's aware or not. It's just that her subconscious is aware that this woman keeps appearing, so she's purposely injected her into her own brain, and she doesn't have actual agency. But I'm going to pretend that she's actually is aware. What's going on?
I like that better. Something is happening, so we gotta
clearly
assume
like
something.
and it was like right either before or after the snow had appeared. So like
it was right after. Yep.
Yeah,
right after.
There's
so
lots of stuff. Then we get to the bar.
We get to the pub. Which is how much did you love this scene?
Oh, this was great.
So good.
But even before, like, I just want to stop on the sign. They make a point of focusing on the sign, and it's like E. Pre Marlowe or something, which I have to look at. It was established in 1863. The fact that they linger just a little bit on that sign and push down, and it's a tree. Like, I think there's something to.
Apparently, it's Welsh for the dead wood.
Okay, so it's a David Milch nod to the HBO
great.
long-running HBO Western Deadwood. Yeah.
Listen to the thunder.
Which is great because that tree that the old woman's standing under that's kind of bending in the wind, like all that is great. Apparently, I was doing, because I was so interested in like what's going on in the story, doing a little reading, read it. Someone mentioned, take this for a grain of salt, but I read it on the internet, so it must be true. This same pub was used in an episode of Torchwood. And the older actress, the older patron at the bar, woman in red, was the character
Cheyenne Phillips, the woman that's sitting at the bar. You know who she is, right?
She's using the voice.
No.
Some strength. Surprising.
Come here.
He's the Reverend Mother from Dune.
No way!
1984's David Lynch's Dune. And as soon as I heard her voice, I was like, "Oh my God! Put your hand in the box." I was
what
like,
did we do?
I love her. She's amazing, and that's her. That's her. So I was but again, I was already dialed in. And then to have her in this scene, and
the fact
if you watch that again and you watch that scene again and you listen to her voice, you can't not hear her talking to Paul Atreides and giving him the Gom Jabbar. She's perfect for that, like,
that's great.
That kind of sinister vibe of like magic, but also being not an evil character, but she just really sort of like, she's perfect. She's perfect casted in this. She's perfect as the Reverend Mother.
Absolutely.
Gaius Helena. What's the last name?
Helena Bonham Carter.
Helena.
Apparently,
right?
She was also a character in a Torchwood story as well. I don't know if it's the same character or it was just the actress repeating. But anyway, so this is what the internet said, so it must be true. Anyway, so we get into here. Someone also mentioned that this is very American Werewolf in London, this whole part.
A film I have not seen, but yes, I believe that. I mean, that's...
I've only seen it once, and it was as an adult, but a long time ago, so I don't recall. But it is, the hikers in the bar, in the pub, and like there was something out in the woods. So, which was super fun. You get that claustrophobic, like you said earlier.
She's also in Clash of the Titans. I have to throw that out because I love Clash of the Titans.
Of course.
Calabos.
Let's
the original
filmography. Can we just go through her filmography?
She's the even more beautiful than the goddess herself, and then the head falls, and in 30 days they got a great actress.
No, we're just gonna go through her whole filmography. Okay, so
I would if we had
this
time.
The pub scene, like you
Pub's
mentioned
fantastic.
Before, the misdirects. This could have been a bottle episode from this point on.
Oh yeah, and that's your expectation.
Which was great. You're
is
right.
Like, okay, and then the camera work, very much like a Evil Dead Sam Raimi with that flat looking thing and lots of zoom ins and Dutch angles and all of that, and the tension is fantastic, and the way that they ratchet up the tension with the banging on the door, and then this is Mad Jack's here, and awesome, and then how they flip that, and they're like, by the way, that's racist.
It's great.
It's a little bit racist for you to assume that we just like druids and magic and all of that.
And talking about, England coming in and torture centers and these castles, and they're drenched in blood. All of that was incredible. But
everybody's so like weird. Like that's like I honestly like I love this episode, so I wouldn't change a thing. But had it been like that as the episode, I probably still would have loved it. Maybe not as much, but all those characters were interesting. Like I wanted to see more of there was the guy and the girl, whether they were friends or boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever. Like even
they were not boyfriend and
girlfriend. The woman has
Okay.
very few lines, but every time she talked, I was like, what's her angle? Like all of that I thought was great. So I liked that entire scene and would have taken more, but the fact that they didn't give it to you made it better in a way.
Now that you say that, I agree. Now that you say that, it actually calls to mind the story Midnight when they're on the train and it's that is a bottle episode.
It felt like that.
It felt like that because of those characters and ratcheting up the tension. So it does have a little bit of that flavor to it. But
and talking
the fact
about
that, like you said, they puncture it and deflate it and turn it around was
right. And it's all like playing with expectations of what you know of Doctor Who as well. Like she gets there and she's trying to pay with PayPal, Apple Pay or whatever with her phone, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" And in your head, you're like, "What year is it? Right? Are we?
What year is it? Yeah,
we're before phones, and that's where sort of Ruby's head's at." But then
because
it like
you can't
flips
tell
that.
from because the pub is timeless. It could be 50 years ago. It could be in the future. It's just timeless. They all had very ambiguous like clothing and hairstyles. It very well could have been 1980.
It also reminded me of Sandman, like is it the pub at the edge of the world or whatever? There's that story where the guy gets hurt, right? And he wanders into the pub, and like the pub is just
that's where they tell all the different stories. Yeah.
Awesome,
wonderful. I love the bartender was fantastic. She just both surly, but also at the same time, like she offers her the room. She gives
she
her
brings her
spare
clothes. Yeah,
like but I want them back. Like it's just on the line of being like friendly enough, but also
not friendly at all.
And
like
funny. Yeah,
you're getting a Coke. It's the last of the big spenders, and all of that stuff.
A 5-pound Coke too.
And
so
then it's
obviously like taking advantage of a tourist coming in and just charging them an obscene amount for a Coke.
Yes,
great. But you have Josh go out and he's going to go and you see him. So that, we get the second time of him talking to the woman. The way that she's kind of lit in that kind of alley almost. Man, this was so creepy.
It was so good, and I got to give it up for the editing too. The time jump editing is perfect. Like the hard cuts to the ghost outside in that scene, and then you cut again, and it's daytime. Or then you cut again, and she's sitting down at the table, and you're like, okay, days have passed. Like really well put together, but also moves in the way a dream moves. Like 1 minute I'm here, and then all of a sudden I'm over here, but it's still matches and feels
that's
right.
Great. They don't call attention to the time jumps, especially at the beginning. Oh, they do at the very end, but they don't call attention to it. So you're right. Like
there's some dialogue.
You surmise that a couple of days gone by. Then she said like Josh hasn't come in for a while. So okay, some more time has passed. So that all happens. She gets kicked out of the pub and basically goes back to the TARDIS and says, says goodbye. Her saying goodbye to him,
sad scene,
caught me so hard because she didn't get enough time with him, and she's still like, if you were to come back, I would love to see you again.
Yes,
like, she's just,
and if you think about that,
yearning,
right? Her talking to her own parents or talking to all these people that have left her, it's really heartbreaking. I think this is by far my favorite episode, as I mentioned, but her performance is amazing.
So
like
good.
she's like phenomenal, and that kind of makes me sad that she's only doing one season. And I also wish we would get more episodes like this. I wish we would get more stories like this. Like we'll get to the end where they're like next week on Doctor Who, maybe it'll be great. But
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I did. It's like one of those like weakest link type things, or it seems like it's in like some house of influencers or something. I don't know.
I did see a part of that by accident.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm not sure if that's exactly what it is, but like these are like this when you put this up in the same season as like Space Babies, it's like we could just be doing this all the time.
We get 8 episodes of this? Yeah, give us a
maybe
solid.
the audience doesn't like this. I don't know. I have a feeling people will all love this.
It's a wide audience, so you do have to do kind of. I understand that. Something we did,
but she's
fantastic. Before we just like jump to the future, we're about to jump into the second part that you kind of defined. For this.
When she leaves.
One thing that we mentioned in the pub when they're going around and kind of psyching her out with like it's Mad Jack and he's come back, and so I don't know if this is all just BS that they're playing with her or if it actually means something in the story. Maybe it's both. But the older woman, the Reverend Mother, says. It said that he walks through gaps, the spiteful one.
Yes,
so is this?
I was going to make a note of that. Right,
the pantheon that we're talking
he who
about.
Waits, or the one who waits, or is it another? Like you're saying, another member of this family.
And then there's a second part that's very similar to this. She says if the woman outside is his herald, which calls back to the
To Silver
harbinger
Surfer.
for the
okay.
maestro.
Yeah, the harbinger. Yes.
she's,
yeah,
she's on a surfboard. She's all. But
yes,
no, but
harbinger.
so that the harbinger with Harry Harbinger, you got the herald, like that idea of someone coming and leading the way before this bigger evil comes. Again, it could be nothing. It could be dream logic where it makes sense because it's kind of in her head someplace and just coming out in this way. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that because I thought that was really
no. I'm
important
glad you
do
did
it.
I'm glad you did because that is definitely meaningful. And I love that it's like, oh, there's an unexplained situation. Why is this woman here? Here's our explanation. We're building a story around it. It's this whole magic thing. You broke the circle, blah blah blah, and then they flip that and they're like, you just walked into string deer. And then they all laugh at her.
Like we still
well, maybe they're wrong, but
obviously it is.
But if you look at it like as a whole story, it's like you have unexplained phenomenon. Explanation is this folk horror myth broken. Unexplained phenomenon. Oh, the explanation is more of a Doctor Who one that you have to stop the Prime Minister. That becomes the story. That's broken. That's not the story. It just keeps sort of arcing in that way.
Something I want to mention too, because I went back to look at this to see if they actually used the same terms, but they didn't. In Wild Blue Yonder, where all of this starts, really, the Doctor pours the salt there, and we have the two like copies of the Doctor and Donna, and he can't cross it. I wanted to see if he actually mentioned liminal spaces. He doesn't exactly. It's that boundary between the known universe. So he doesn't say liminal spaces, but Reverend Mother does when she's talking about the cliffs. I had a point here. Sorry.
Well, while you're thinking of that, like again, you mentioned the Doctor with the salt, and now the Doctor with the fairy circle. In both cases, the Doctor is doing magic essentially. Like the salt and on the edge thing is a magic thing. A fairy circle is magic. We talk about supernatural and all of that stuff.
So here's the thing. Exactly right. Thank you. So what he says to them, like the fake Donna is like. That's just superstition. That they can't cross the line until they count all the grains of salt. That's just a superstition. And the Doctor says it's a superstition and it's real. It's two things, which makes me think this whole explanation of like what's going on with this witchcraft. You broke the fairy circle and Mad Jack's coming. It's just a fairy story, but it's not real. But it actually is. It's both things at once.
I agree.
Anyway, sorry. That was a very minor point that just took me on a detour, but these things are really tying together well.
We get this very beautifully acted and emotional scene of her sort of talking to the empty TARDIS, and then she goes on the train, and that whole sequence on the train was really cool where you see looking out the windows, and she can't really escape yourself. It doesn't matter where you're going to run. You're still the same person you always are.
No matter where you go, you're always there.
And then how sad was it? Then she goes to her house and her mom's trying to help. And then her mom...
that moment of her mom like gathering her up into a hug, I don't know why, but that was like an emotional release for me as well. Of just
then
like
a little anti-Welsh sentiment that came out of the mom's mouth where she's like, those are Welsh people. They're stupid.
Oh, yes.
Essentially.
Yes.
And then we get Mrs. Flood, right? So Mrs. Flood... Unless you have something earlier than that, Mrs. Flood at that point when the mom, to set the stage, so the mom is like, hey, we can solve this problem. And I like how they approach each one of these things and explain, like someone watching it be like, why don't you just get a phone and then go? So anyway, so that's her solution. She's going to get a phone. Ruby's going to be on the phone. She's going to go talk to the woman, and then she could talk to her via the phone. And then Mrs. Flood comes out and says, like, this is weird. You're talking to your own mom.
Having a nice time. Yeah.
But then she says... this is nothing to do with me, and walks away.
Yep.
Now, you could just say the character is like, I'm not being involved in this situation. Or Mrs. Flood is some higher dimensional entity. Black Guardian, White Guardian is like, okay, I can enter this realm, but this is not related to my task. So this has nothing to do with me. Right?
I've been looking forward to you taking what is apparently like 3 lines of dialogue and spitting it out.
It's meanmeaningful. That line is meaningful because she changes and she goes down.
I wrote it down too. I thought so too. Absolutely.
Nothing to do with me, Mrs. Flood. And
so Eric, what is downstairs? What's the downstairs?
No, because she comes out of the outside and then she goes into the subterranean. So as above, so below, right? Right. So
absolutely,
the White Guardian's above, the Black Guardian's below. But that whole White Guardian, Black Guardian thing, I mean, I don't know.
You really want that to be?
I really want them to bring it back. I had said again, I thought maybe Mrs. Flood was their mom. I feel less confident in that, but I do. Yes. I'm not letting go that they're brother and sister, but the whole like a yin yang thing going on with what's her face, the one that keeps appearing. What's the character? There's no character name, but what's the actress's
old woman
name?
Oh,
we literally said it in this episode.
Susan Twist. I think
Susan
the old
Twist.
Woman. No, Susan Twist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Susan Twist and her. Now, we're not seeing Mrs. Flood as much, but I feel like there's definitely a connection and a balance between those two in some way.
The fact that she was the first one, I think, to break the fourth wall.
She breaks the fourth wall. And we can't forget that she looked at the camera and said, "You
never seen a TODWS before."
Heavy. Again, we talked about characters existing outside of the show. I think you and I had disagreed a little bit in whether both doctors are aware of that. But there is like this meta outside of a thing, and we're aware that this is a show or something like that. So that I was glad that she was in it, and I'm glad that she didn't distract it, because it's really a story about Ruby and all of the Ruby's things. So so she's abandoned by her mom, and that was very sad.
Not to skip over the dialogue there too. So her mom goes over, and she's 73 yards away, and she's talking to, and Ruby's like, I can't quite hear. What does she look like? So wait, what was the actual dialogue? She says,
she's like, she looks like the way she looks, or something, or she looks like.
She looks like what she looks like.
Yeah.
What do you mean? She looks like what she is. I just loved it. Love that
perfect
dialogue.
It's so cool.
Like what she
mystery, creepy. I liked all of the quiet. It's not a monster that's running at you. It's clearly always far away. But the way the characters stop, turn, and look,
and then
in quiet, and then freak out was really cool.
And then Ruby chasing her chasing her mom who's run away, and then she comes by in slow motion that cab, and the look on her on Carla's face, it's disgust, it's disdain. Totally. It's like kind of anger, but not really. That broke my heart. That just broke my heart, and it just keeps breaking because Ruby just keeps calling her and calling her.
That
calling
sequence,
her.
And then they change the locks, and then
she changed the lock, and they did another one of those edits where she's outside banging the door. Boom, same spot, and it's nighttime. And she's still sitting there, and she's on the phone with her this time, and she just says,
stop calling.
Go away.
Yeah, I'm not. She's like, you're my mom. I'm not your mom.
Well,
I'm not your real mom. Your real mom didn't love you.
Even your real mother didn't want you.
Yeah,
and that is so. From that point,
we get snow.
Up, and we get snow on the skylight. So that's the second time in this one we actually get snow.
Again, right on the line about her real mom, in quotes, her biological mom, and then the snow. So again,
absolutely,
mom to mom, father to father,
mom.
Snow to snow. So then we go through years, right, decades, right? So we start this process of her aging.
First, it's been 1 year. Which is
I don't want
because we see
over.
See Kate.
Kate, I forgot about the whole Kate
scene,
which was great.
How relieved I was relieved when Kate shows up. It's like, all right, units on the job. We're gonna figure out what's going on
expectations are set, and the whole snipers and everything, and the way
Everyone's
that they did that, it was very action. It felt like you're watching James Bond film or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, she could absolutely be a spy master handled in a James Bond movie. Like
it was cool. It was very Avengers Shield type of operation. So that was cool. And their conversation was enlightening. Like this is where we find out that there are known multiple timelines, because she does mention that I think this event is pausing this timeline, or this timeline is suspended along your event. Right. So the timeline was going, and then it stopped because of this, and we're trapped in this loop. That was interesting. There's another mention that there's more supernatural.
I got you there. So she's like, she's introducing herself, says, well, we're the Unified Intelligence Task Force created to investigate the extraterrestrial and more the supernatural. Things seem to be turning that way these days. Now, is that within this loop that we're seeing here, or is this in general from the moment of Wild Blue Yonder, which is my reading? It's because of that fractured timeline, not this little timeline within it that we're in.
So you think she's referencing the overall one?
Overall, everything's happening. Here's part of the reason why I say this, and this is just me taking a leap of logic from something that's not in the script, but in one of the behind the scenes, I think it was for the musical part. Russell T Davies is talking about, like, we're going to do a musical in Doctor Who because anytime anyone says you can't do that in Doctor Who, I immediately want to do it. So he wants to do a musical. They did the musical number. That's awesome. I would also say one of the things that always happens in Doctor Who is they'll bring in things like fairy tales and monsters and whatever, and then they'll science it away and being like, oh, well, actually, it's these aliens. But I think what he's doing is like, no. This is just
real.
The supernatural. And this is a way to get into Doctor Who, get the supernatural into Doctor Who in a way that you would never do, like a Buffy or like a, whatever, Supernatural, the show. Let's just bring that in here and treat it as its own thing.
And that's a
like,
pretty...
well, it was an alien race that did it.
Exactly. It's a big seismic shift, I think. Because even when we have vampires and Doctor Who in the classic series, like there's an explanation of some alien race or whatever.
Yep.
So that's a great point.
Very cool that he's just like, let's just do this instead. He hasn't said that, but I put these pieces together. I think that's the overall what we're dealing with. Anyway, you see Kate, you think everything's going to be great.
Yeah, and it's not.
Then
and one other thing before we get to the and then. So then Kate also establishes the idea and the central idea that we have these unexplained stories and wrapping, we don't understand anything and we're building these stories around. Again, I'm sort of repeating myself a bit, but I feel like there's so much to that. She's creating these stories that explain why people are leaving her, but also all the stuff we're talking about and all the stuff we're talking about, which is us not understanding this and then just creating these stories and creating these wild theories and talking about Mrs. Flood and like all of this stuff in the Pantheon and them existing outside of it. And I love it. Like, I just hope that it continues in this way. I mean, maybe this is not for everybody. Like, I worry that the general fan base, whoever that is at this moment, will hate this kind of stuff. And they
want answers, right?
Right. They either just want answers, but I just find that idea so fascinating. And I'll just say one other point. The whole multiverse, multiple universe things, I'm a little over. Like, there's been so much of that, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all of those things. It just feels, it does like lower stakes a lot because, if this character is going to die, there's another version of the character. So I am a little worried about too much of multiple universe stuff. I don't know. I wanted to kind of get your idea of what you feel, if you feel that's a good path to go on, if these multiple universes are going to be a thing.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same thing. The multiverse fatigue is crazy, and I think Marvel is mostly responsible for it. There's a show right now on, I think it's Apple Plus, Dark Matter, based on a book by Blake Crouch that I loved. Very much the multiverse thing. It's just like kind of like everywhere right now. In this, it feels to me not one of those like every possibility you could ever had is an actual universe and we have to explore all that. To me, it feels much more like what you're talking about with the ruptured timeline. It is a self-contained thing, and that will then collapse on itself.
Right.
The one place where it gets a little bit weird is with the stepping on the butterfly that we saw previously, and things change and he puts it back again,
and then things are undone.
So that's a little bit. But I
and it's hard to look at that kind of. Yeah, it's hard to look at that scene too and say, is that just a gag? Like, you're just not supposed to read anything into it, because that's I did not like that episode, and that's a thing I didn't like. But yes, is it a gag or does it actually have any meaning?
I hope it really was just a gag, but I don't know, because it was kind of played for laughs in the moment.
Yes. Clearly,
because the character totally changes as well. She's not just differently looking. She's
she's like a whole other species.
Yeah.
And the multiple universe thing is also not new, right? Like,
sure.
One thing that pops in my head is like that Neil Gaiman episode with the TODWS, right, where they talk about bubble universes or something. Don't they? Isn't there a whole
Doctor's
thing?
Wife.
The Doctor's Wife, where and even before that, like, it's hard to understand. Like, E-space is just another.
I knew you were going to mention E-space,
right? It's not a different timeline or anything, but they have had different timelines, right? With Gallifrey being hidden, was it in another timeline or just another hidden realm or.
I feel like they don't do the multiverse thing. They do alternate universes, which is slightly different. There's just different universes where they're separated from each other, but they're not like a branch from a point in time where two things happen. It doesn't feel so much like that.
Rose was hidden in another universe or another right, and then
that was more of this multiverse.
Yeah, so it's not like a new concept, I guess. I just
no, not at all.
Sometimes if there's too much of that, it's like I don't know.
But they never lean into this like that is the whole story of like every possible decision is a universe. Like it's usually very purposeful for that story. It's Anyway,
okay.
I guess
that's all.
Okay.
Again, so now yes, as you're saying,
we got this
thing. They go in to talk to her, and it does not work out.
It does not go well. At least at this point, though, Ruby knows that she's not crazy. She's measured it. It's 73 feet, or 73 yards. It's 66.7 meters. They both say at the same time, "It's like you're not crazy." Oh, thank God. The thing with the camera not being able to pick it up, like she always looks like from the reference point of a person with 20/20 vision from 73 yards away. I like that Kate's like, well, our equipment is slightly more
a little bit better
than that, which is pretty good. But yeah, at the moment of panic when Ruby's like knows that or fears that Kate is going to hear the voice and leave her.
Yep.
And the panic on her face as it happens, and then Kate turns around to that look, very similar to Carla, but that just like not the screaming, running away in terror that Josh and the hiker did, or that Carla.
No,
did. Carla got up and ran away too.
Yep.
She is just there and like, call it off. We're done.
Yep. And that whole turn when they all turn and look, and then she gets it through the earpiece, and you're right, she doesn't lose her
Everyone
mind.
Else
she just sort of looks
away.
at her, and it's even more cold and mean, disengaged.
Yes. Yeah.
And she gets up and leaves, and you see all the rage and the emotion in her when she breaks her coffee cup or whatever she was drinking at the table, and then the waitress is yelling. Like, that was perfect.
Yep,
it's perfect. And you think about again her reaching out for help, and she can't even get it through a professional.
This is the first time too that we see like. It's been a whole year. She even says
she says it's been
her
a year.
mother got a restraining order against her.
She said that, yeah.
Oh,
no, family's
man.
completely isolated. She's been working for a year. Now we start jumping into these massive time jumps that.
So you get the little like birthday card on the windowsill,
which is
a great
way to
simple
show
really
that.
Simple.
Yeah, she's buying her own birthday gift though, but it's fine. It's
that's fine. She got like the 25, 30. We get interspersed with the dates that we should talk about until she's like 40 years old. She keeps. I liked the way that she's like going to the window and acknowledging the woman there and like almost treating her like a friend. You know, she raises a glass to her. She's not so scared of her. She's kind of
she's learning to deal with her own mental state, as we all do. Yes, that part was great, and she's just retreating to alcohol.
Which is totally fine.
Self-medicating a bit happening there. If you look at like Kate as a therapist or something that didn't work out, so she's trying that avenue. She's doing the alcohol, and then the dating. I found the dating so good, and the conversations that we're having, where it's completely one-sided with the guy,
and just always looking away, even while he's calling her out on it. She's doing
the dialogue is so good too, because within just a couple of lines, you can read so much into that story that they've been dating for a while, like they've been trying to make it work. And so the guy's sort of doing a laundry list of why it's not working. I think the first one, they're talking about going away on a trip. He's inviting her on a trip, but she's not really interested.
Overseas. She's afraid of
she's afraid
her boat.
Which is something, she told Kate, I'm afraid either I'll die or they'll die.
She will.
And that really resonated with me too. Like, it was so good. And then even, and the editing is so great here as we're jumping from date to date, and whatever music selection they chose, which I wish I had written down, was very good. I thought that was a perfect music. It really tied to the emotion of the scene.
La Bicefree.
Perfect.
Something that, I totally agree. So we get the birthday cards that indicate the age. Also, I didn't quite notice this until I saw I rewatched, and it was also mentioned one of the behind the scenes. I did notice the one thing as the time passes and she's looking out her window, the skyline of London also changes.
Yes, and the spaceships are like the little
drones or whatever flying in the sky.
Blade Runner stuff. I love
the Blade Runner, so the big
Yes.
hologram.
Yes,
billboard in the
that
background.
stuff.
Really cool.
I love near future sci-fi where it's not so full blown, but there's just enough of like. This is probably what's going to happen. We get a little bit of that later with we used to use apps on the phone, and now whatever that.
Yeah, that one was clunky, but this was
the fact that his middle name was App.
Again, yes. But if you didn't notice the reflection that these things were happening, it would have been fine. That you did notice it even better. It wasn't like banging you over the head with it. I thought it was really cool. But so this is when she has. Oh, so she hears on the TV. Finally, we get. Roger App William saying, they used to call me.
He talks about all his
Mad
jobs
Jack,
that he had.
Jack of all trades,
there's
Mad Jack.
no significance to any of those jobs. He's like, I was a janitor. I was like, I don't think there is any connection to any of that.
Except
I think it's just
he just said, I'm a Jack of all trades.
Yes,
Mad
they
Jack
used to
is
call
what
me
they
Mad
call
Jack.
That was it. Just
right.
Okay, fine.
So
they
she
get to
gets
that,
a
and then
purpose.
she has I know what I'm going to do. And I love that she's like, come on, we have work to do. She's walking down the street.
Yes, and she does a little...
to make sure she's still there.
Yeah, and she waves her to come closer. And I like her little insult against the guy in bed where she talks about like, all these things are my fault except for that one. That was funny. I agree with you.
So that's the end of what you would call like the second part. It's like
yes, and then
time jumps, and now she's like purpose. So that's part 3.
Yep,
where
and
she goes right into the volunteer
political thing, the political office. Yep. Which that whole thing was cool. And then whatever's going on with the other volunteer who had Marty, that was very dark. Very clearly dark. Like
and understated. Like
they didn't. I mean, you get her apologizing like I wish I could have stopped it. And there's a lot to that. But that was
Let's come back to that.
Yeah, that was very heavy and like just that whole dialogue and it's a boy's name. Like just even that guy was great. The guy that played Mad Jack.
Totally scary in a very controlled sort of, I don't know, kind of get like an American Psycho sort of like it's calm under this cover. This whole thing, again, Americans watching a British show. He's on the show Hotline. That actor is the host of the show. They just aged him up a little bit. So that was a cameo for that journalist. So I think that really helped sell it. I always feel weird. This is also true in Doctor Who. If you remember, like some of the older New Who, they always had the same actress, a black woman who played like the CNN sort of like anchor, but she recurred a couple of times as they're doing all the things. It never felt real. It never felt like an actual journalist on CNN. To see like this journalist play himself, it all felt so real.
Yeah, I thought that. I agree.
It's just a silly point. I'm sorry. It's just a dumb point. But just
I felt
it. I don't know. I can't tell what it is about. These actors are obviously very good. They got hired to do a role on a major TV show. The writing is great, but it never read as real. In this case, on the real set with an actual journalist, it all made the stakes feel so like he actually wants to detonate a nuke.
Well, and I think the way that they did it was so good. And so, again, Russell T Davies is a testament to his writing, is it wasn't very mustache twirly, evil villain, looking to the camera, I'm going to detonate the bomb. The fact that they had that scene where the question starts to come up and he looks and he's like, we're going to cut that, right? Like that.
It's not even a question. It's not even a question. This is what's going to happen.
Right.
You're going to cut that.
Love that. Very real, or like, that was great. And like all of the,
really good.
Just the fact that he is like a periphery character. We never really get to know him. We always see him out of the corner of her eye when she's holding the coats. And again, we talk about Marty, the scene with, something horrible is going on, that he's picking her out and he's grooming her and taking her to these parties and everything. But you never, you're just on the outside of it. You're 73 yards away from it. But
we're distant.
That was so well done. Like it wasn't heavy-handed.
Marty is so excited at the beginning, and he's like says hi to her, and she's like stammering over herself to like actually meet him. And then it's the election night, and he wins with 92% of the vote. And Ruby goes over to Marty, who's sitting in a corner, like looking like something's up. And she's like very depressed. And Marty's like, "Oh, he is a monster."
Yes.
So you just like get that one moment, and that actress goes from in the space of like 2 minutes from like yay to like horrified, dead.
She has a very small role,
crazy.
but she was
Important
good.
role.
And the end, or when we get to the
this part.
football field,
Yeah.
the way her maniacal laughing when he ends up going crazy,
Just-
the two of them, like,
yeah.
great. This is
So-
like a weird episode too. Like, there's a lot of just like weird energy in a really, really good way.
Creepy
that I
energy,
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
I like that Ruby says to her, I'm sorry it took so long because I think I'll only get one chance. I had to make sure I was right, but I wish I could have helped you. I'm so sorry. Which just felt to me like what you always expect from the companions after they left the Doctor. They're always Doctor-like in that way. Whether it's like a self-selecting group, they have that nature and that's why they came with the Doctor, or the Doctor brings it out of them. Even though she was with him for such a brief time, she goes and does this. Thought that was great. What I don't quite, again, one of those things I don't quite understand, but like she steps back the 73 yards, which was really fun, like tense scene. And the woman's
Yes,
right
because
next
you
to
hear
a
the
woman's right next to her.
countdown on the phone,
Right.
and they've got the guns drawn, and
they
like,
they set it up earlier that he still, like, even though he's going to be the prime minister, he still says hello to everyone. So he's going to say hi to this woman. Then he runs away screaming, like Josh had done, like the hiker had done, like Carla had done, and then resigns. I don't know. Like, everyone else was abandoning her, and in this case, it wasn't that. So how does this fit into your
right?
So
So like
together
in one reading of that, I was like, okay, it could be that this is her true self, and in a way, he's now communicated with his true self, and he hates himself, and he's running away. I don't think it's necessarily that.
Okay.
But I don't think it matters.
I know it doesn't. I know,
you know what I mean. I feel like
it's-
for her,
everything's
she's like,
just-
I'm such an awful person, or people get to know me. Okay, well, I'll let him really get to know me, and like, so like that sort of thread works for her, but maybe none of this is real anyway, because in the end, it doesn't matter. I mean, sure, it's great that she saved, right? She saved, us from a nuclear
the world
disaster, but maybe she didn't as well. Like, maybe she just heard that thing that the Doctor said, and now when she went in her head, she would just invent all these stories about how, she filled in the gaps herself, and she filled in the gaps the way I filled in the gaps under my porch to stop the mice from coming in.
The mice are back. That whole, like, it was in her head all along. That sort of like, oh boy, old reference, but like, who shot JR? It was all a dream.
Yes.
I don't mean it even
like
such,
yeah.
I know that's not what you're saying. I don't.
Well, in a way,
it
is what I'm saying, and I think that's also.
But I don't think that's what
it, right. Like, yes, I know.
Right.
It's not cheap in that way. Like,
it's it can be that, but not cheap.
If who shot JR? If Bobby, right? It was showering, and it turned out the whole thing was like a big metaphor for his childhood grief or something. Then I would be like, that was perfect, of course, because his little brother drowned in the water, and now he's in the shower, and it's all. But it wasn't that. It was just literally, how do we get out of this? This was like painfully constructed as in a perfect way, in a circle, like a fairy circle,
like a fairy circle. He does say whenever he resigns, and the reporters
fairy circles also, Dan, I'm sorry, just to jump in here. Like, my understanding of fairy circles in folklore, usually mushroom based, right? So these mushrooms
toadstools in a circle,
and a lot of people say that they are portals to other worlds. If you were,
a lot of people are saying, people are telling me.
There you go. She's entered the portal. Go on, Dan.
Mad Jack says,
whose name is Aaron Bernard. I hope I'm pronouncing your first name right. And Anurin Bernard. We should give him credit because he was great. The actor's name. I'm sure Wonderful. I ruined your first name, so
butchered it.
Apologies.
Much like the hiker mispronouncing the Welsh town's name, which is great.
That was a great line. They never let me forget it, or whatever.
They never let me forget it. It was a really good line. But he does so. Roger says, why'd you resign? Ask her. Josh said the same thing. Ask her, which I just wanted to mention that they both have the same, like, it's about that. Anyway, but now we get, so part 4, final part, 40 years later, which just, obviously this was all going to wrap up and it's going to like get resolved and undone and we get back to Ruby and the companion. But it still feels like the stakes of like what's happening to Ruby. We're seeing her entire life go by.
Again, expectations in Doctor Who are these things are going to be resolved within.
She did the thing.
A couple of days, maybe a week. Character is not going to live their entire life. So
Right.
As she got older, you're like, what? Like, okay, what? Like, is she going to go back in
Right.
time?
She's
Like,
a 40-year-old
and a
companion with him,
40-year-old
I guess?
cut. And hats off
40 years.
to casting for casting
She's
a wonderful actress and not CGIing the face of Millie Gibson to play the old version. Like, that would have ruined. Like, this is exactly how we should treat older actors.
Absolutely.
Hire them instead of just CGIing whatever. I'm looking at you, Martin Scorsese, for the what is that? He only paints houses, or The Irishman.
The Irishman,
right?
Yeah,
I love Martin Scorsese.
That would have been hard because
like,
they needed to look so much. But there was the de-aging, which was the hard. I don't know how you.
I don't like any of the de-aging, and I don't like any of the aging. It's like there's so many actors, there's so many brilliant actors out there. Give them, and she was perfect,
great,
perfect.
She had several good scenes of just monologuing.
Right,
that were
the one we're going to see now with the cane. You see the cane come down, wonderfully shot, and then her and I love, like, when that type of abandoned
the TARDIS,
artwork.
the way it looked.
Perfect. Like that style of like when people let a building go and then nature starts to take it back over and like, people take pictures of it. I love that. So to see the TARDIS like this.
Yep.
Oh,
with the lichen growing up it, and it's all, and there's the fairy circle. More people are leaving flowers and notes.
Yeah, it's like a memorial.
It pans over the scroll and it says, "Love you, Josh."
Oh, okay.
On one of the scrolls. So I guess that was that callback as well. But yeah, so she's sitting there. She says, "My mother must have died, but no one told me. I never found my birth mother. It never snowed again."
Yes, it's like
the way she delivered it too.
And then she goes into the thing about hope and like that. I must have learned that from you. Hoping against. I forget what it is. Hoping against all hope, or what
she
is
says.
it?
I keep thinking, I don't know why, the woman, I must have been thinking about it my whole life. Why is she here? And I think at the end, I have hope. Because that's very you, isn't it, my old friend? I dare to hope. And that's, I like that is, because we've had this Doctor, previous versions of the Doctor, where it's like, he is vengeance, or he is, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But that he is hope, love this.
I love
it's
that.
Such a different tone.
Whole scene is great.
It's wonderful.
The conversations with her and the woman taking care of her are great, and just sitting.
Everyone's
sitting
abandoned me my whole life.
So
everyone's but I haven't been alone for 65 years.
Oh yeah, later on when she's in her deathbed, literally in her deathbed.
Jesus.
And then
so good.
That scene, and again, it reminded me a little bit, 2001, at the end of 2001, with the guy in his bed and he's seeing himself in a way. That whole scene was great. And her line about the, if you want to turn the light off, just say light. She's like, we had that when I was a kid.
When I was young. That's
from
not
2024. Like, so cute. And like the way that we're dismissive of older people. I used to make it
that's nice.
Snow. Oh, that's great. Yeah, you crazy person. What were you going to say?
But then when we got, it's just the ending of this part is the old woman with her back to her this time.
Scary imagery, and the way
in the room, the lights are flashing.
Right, because she's dying and
getting closer.
You hear the life support going, or the heart monitor going.
Starts beep. But what's great is it is a shot as a very scary scene.
Mm-hmm.
You have this almost the Ring-like with the back of the head and the hair, and she's getting closer and closer. But when it reverses the shot to old Ruby in the bed, she's smiling and accepting it, willing it.
Yes, like, finally
it's a scary
accepts
scene
herself.
That is also a happy emotional scene at the same time.
Yes, perfect. No notes.
And then you get the edit again. So she has the hands reaching out, and the edit again, and she's on the cliff, and it's her hands.
So we get that montage of going backwards in time to where we see all of those things. Now I will say, and maybe I'm not the brightest camper, as I was watching this, I didn't really have a thought that that's her, and maybe that was obvious for everybody. But for me, at the end, as the reveal happened and it was coming, I wasn't like, "Oh, it's her."
Once they hit the 40 years, I was like, "It's her. It had to be her."
So you were there before
but
me.
Up until then, I was just like,
until her reaction that you were talking about. Once I saw her reaction, and there was like smile, and I'm like, okay. Then I got it. So it just took me a little bit longer, maybe because I was so involved in the thing.
I don't know that I knew that it was going to be, but I suspected when there was the 40-year jump and she was that old, it was like it would have been weird for it not to be. I didn't quite see. And again, like, it's this dream logic. I don't know how she became the woman and how she's able to see from that point of view, or how that was able to change anything.
Right. Well, again,
like, how did it?
So,
how
so
did
we
she
go back.
get
Right.
Ruby
We go
to-
back
yeah.
and we do that great cut of the old hands, so they
Yep.
don't play the scene too early. You don't want to see the TARDIS yet, right? And
Yep.
the hands come down, or you see the
And there's
TARDIS. I could not have. It took me this long, and for me, it's like her accepting who she is finally, and being herself. And then she sees I couldn't remember how young I was, which is awesome too, because it's like we spend all of our years now. I'm almost 50, and I spend so much time, depressed or anxious or worried about all of these things, and it's like you don't even realize how young you are in that moment.
Missing that.
You're
Yep.
missing all
Yep.
of that. So then you get that scene, and the dialogue changes, right? Because the order of things.
I've been to whale 3 times.
Right, been to whale 3 times. So you can say like, okay, well, how did she transmit that knowledge? Is before she's saying don't step. It does not matter.
It does. Right, exactly. Like,
Right?
I want to know, but also totally fine that it doesn't explain it. I love that she says, old Ruby says, "I'm sorry I took so long. I tried so hard. What else could I do? I took all these years, all these long years."
Right, to
So,
finally
like, that was the
find
only way
herself.
to get to the point
Yes.
and do that. And and have that moment of acceptance.
Yep, and then
seeing her young self.
And then we hear what she was saying, which is "don't step," right?
Don't step. Yeah.
Don't step. Over and over. That happens a little bit earlier. She's seeing herself really, and then immediately she's gone. She stops the doctor from breaking the circle, but she still goes in for the notes, and the doctor stops her.
Yes.
Which was interesting, right? You would think like,
That was,
she don't step, but then that would have been it. But she's still going for the notes, so I guess it's all fine. And then that line about, you said 3 times, and then the way it hard cuts on now.
Yeah, I guess the third time was now. Yeah,
and that was great.
Was
I
great.
love the way that was paced, and it just it was great.
It was absolutely those misdirects, those setting expectations and undercutting them so many times throughout that just made this feel like such a fun story. Again, don't understand how some of this works, but the idea that it is this, like, it feels right in a dream logic sort of way. It doesn't, you can't intellectualize like, well, what did they say? Why did they scream? Doesn't matter. It felt right. It made sense.
No, and the fact that when you can take like a high concept like that, there's someone that's following someone, they're always 43 yards away, and you can make that a metaphor, or 73 or 73, whatever it is, doesn't matter.
Just the title.
When you can make that have an emotional connection and a hook and the real thing. The best horror movies are like that are driven by some deeper meaning. They're not just murders or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just, to me, that's like art. I mean, that's when it becomes metaphor, and it's something that's elevated. Loved it. I just wish there were more things, more like this.
The seeming tonal change we're going to get to the next one.
Yeah.
It's going to be rough.
And the writing too, like, they didn't spoon feed you much, if anything, right? Whereas like some of these other ones, it feels like they just keep, like we talked about the Space Babies one, where they're like, remember that thing you just saw? Here's a shot of it again, and we're gonna say exactly what's happening and why, and do it 3 times. And this was like a more mature story that I very much appreciated. So, but I'm open. I mean, even though that the next time on felt more like that Weakest Link episode or something like that. Sometimes I do like those. I mean, if it's satire and it's I'm gonna go in with an open mind.
Absolutely.
It's I mean, coming off a high point.
Right. Just go with it whenever it comes up.
Oh, and I just also want to say at the end of this, I loved when the doctor said, don't take those notes. Let them rest in peace, like your ghost. And it's like, because she died, like her whole life, and she died, and that's her ghost is herself, and that was a nice rest in peace thing.
I don't remember him saying like your ghost.
Yeah. Because she had seen the ghost, right? So she's like, hey, do you see that woman over there? He looks, there's no one over there. And he's like, you're crazy. You're seeing ghosts. And he says, rest in peace, like your ghost, because we just watched her die. We were in a room with an old woman alone. God, I've been abandoned my whole life, but I've not been alone. And
just
right?
Yeah, totally coming. Absolutely.
All right. I feel like we apparently had
myself. We've gone forever talking about this. We did get some of our listeners.
Okay. What people
called
think?
out on Twitter.
I have not read this feedback. This is my prediction. Okay. I feel like this episode will be universally loved. Sometimes I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
Sometimes I don't know and I can't tell. Like, I don't know if people are going to like it. I feel like this is going to be a high mark. Like, this will win everyone over.
All right.
Right?
Well,
even the haters.
Let's
see. On that note.
So we got 2 messages. We got some tweets as well, but 2 messages. One from our listener, Misfit Scully. Hi again. Thank you for always participating and telling us what you think. She says, let's see. Hi, Dana Eric. Loved 73 yards, which is a little over 666 meters. Thank you. I thought it was you, Dana, that had said this to us. But yeah, so it's the 666 sort of thing. Though they do say 66.7 in the dialogue, but whatever. Anyway, fine. So absolutely loved it. Felt like this was a cracking suspense filled episode that Millie absolutely held together considering her relative lack of leading lady experience. A Dr. Light episode, they don't always work out that way, but this does. He says, I haven't seen Sex Education, but will at some point.
Yeah, you would love that
Shooty
show.
Was great. He's wonderful. He's a totally different character. Absolutely wonderful. He's great. I enjoyed the pub sequences. They took over the pub for 4 days to film all of that. Thank you to the Disney accounting department. Very good. The money is showing up. So it felt like very American Werewolf in London. I had read that someone else had mentioned that.
Yeah, I should probably watch that film.
Definitely felt great. It's a good movie. Guest actors that were a little wasted, but maybe that's a fact that it's Doctor Who and everyone just wants to be in it. Train sequence was extraordinary with no green screen used. That's cool. All practical. Very nice. Watching Doctor Who Unleashed.
Okay, let's just
the effort for the 20 seconds of screen time. We don't get Doctor Who Unleashed in the States, so we didn't get to see that
I
part.
wish
that's awesome.
Yeah, I would like to watch that. I would just want to pause and just, again, laud this episode in the fact that it's almost all practical effects. Like, you don't need this, like, CGI. Like, the fact that everything, it held your attention, it was tense, it was scary, it was all of these things, but literally just having a person standing down the road.
Yeah. The only effects that we could even notice would be like the skyline stuff, and that's
but
it.
It was like everything was subtle. Like, yes, it was. It was exactly. Really well put together.
Scully goes on to say, Ruby with her mom and what happens is very emotional. Love to see Kate and Unit. Agree. One day, Big Finish will make stories about Ruby and her normal life. The politician storyline actually worked better than I thought. Yeah. Sorry this is so long, but great. Anyway, thank you, Dana, for that.
And I wonder if there will be Big Finish stories around her character, because it is a number of years, whether this is the real timeline or not. You get the sense that she's working with Unit with all the other companions, right? Because she says, I'm having trouble having a job, and Kate says, we have a fix for that. We hire all of his old. No?
And then Kate cuts her out. Then she's gone.
Oh, I guess you're right.
There's no way. Right. She's just living. I do suspect, though, because she was a companion and she does stop Mad Jack, that she probably, you could imagine she had these continuing Sarah Jane-esque sort of adventures, maybe without all the high tech and everything. But you could imagine that. I would love to see it. Still loving the fact that we have Millie for as long as we do. So gonna hold on to that. Let's see. On Twitter as well. Let's see, folks.
Did we get another email?
We did get another email. Come back. I just want to do the Twitters first. Okay. So again, Mr. Scully tweeted 73 yards was bloody good. Need to watch again. Looking forward to our reactions. Well, now you got them. Let's see.
I did watch Kevin it twice too, which I don't usually always watch these twice.
I usually don't either, but this was great. Kevin on video on Twitter says, I thought the horror was very effective. No theme song. Didn't even notice
I didn't even pick up on that either. But again,
I feel like a big dummy.
A world without Doctor Who, really. I mean, that's what it was. It was a world without Doctor Who. How we getting around?
Now we have twice. It's this whole, like, they are self-aware of the show. We have the maestro playing the opening before it goes into this. Now we have it one without it.
We are aware of the thing being
Thank you, Kevin. Show. I feel like a complete dum-dum not noticing it, but I guess just kind of got wrapped up right into the story. So no theme song, and Doctor quickly gone immediately puts you on the back foot. The rug pull when Kate Stewart shows up to save the day, only to also turn on Ruby gutted me.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Agree.
The Dead Zone-esque Dead Zone-esque climax was pretty clever.
I've never seen Dead Zone. I know that's a Stephen King book, and there's a TV adaptation with Christopher Walken.
Well,
or no, am I mixed?
Movies with Christopher Walken. The TV show is with Anthony Michael Hall, of all people.
Okay.
Which I never saw.
I thought the movie
was a
made-for-TV movie, no? Maybe
I
not.
don't know
Maybe
if it's
not.
made for TV, but it was a full,
I should watch it.
movie. And it does end with taking down a politician.
Okay.
So there is very much a call to that. Kevin goes on to say, then it kept going, and it dawned on me Ruby is going to age into the old woman who's been haunting her.
Okay,
that,
so everybody got it. I'm just a dope.
I didn't get to the end. That, however, Resolve was probably going to undo the events of the entire episode, which is a bummer, but hopefully future episodes will give it more importance. I think you're kind of right, and we've said the same thing, except that it is still all feeding into all the things we're talking about. Superstition, the supernatural bleeding in, these little bubble universe things, the fractured timeline. I think even if this got undone, it's still serving all of that.
Yes, and the bigger purpose too is the emotional catharsis and growth that Ruby goes through.
Yep.
Whether or not it happened, it doesn't matter. It's her character.
She still had that
growing, becoming comfortable with herself.
Alan Kingsley says, I was gripped the whole time. Very creepy, very effective. But I kept assuming that everything would be explained, and I'm baffled why that didn't happen. What was the woman saying to everyone? Where did the doctor go? Who created the fairy circle? I'm really hoping that a satisfying resolution is on the way, because as it stands, the hand-waviness of the ending just doesn't work for me. And I think that was kind of my point of view coming into this until, Eric, you were talking about, like, it all makes sense in a dream logic sort of way. And that's why I'm saying is, like, it doesn't logically make sense because you can't put the pieces together, but it all emotionally makes sense.
Yes, and I feel
you don't have to
and that is the difference between science and magic. It's about intuition. It's about what feels right, and not a scientific explanation, which you have on the science fiction side of things. And we are shifting towards supernatural, where there are no explanations; they just are.
Yeah,
which I'm happy for, but I can understand why someone would be mad about that. But for me, I don't want any explanations.
Right.
I have so much more fun doing this and trying to
putting it together,
figure it out, than if someone tells me what I'm supposed to feel.
But traditionally, Doctor Who does do that. It does give you that
100%. Yeah,
and it is weird in that way, but satisfying for. I think we both like that. I did ask on Twitter the political party that Roger William had was Albion. I was like, what is that? Albion was apparently an old name for Great Britain, or a potential name that wasn't chosen. Okay. So I was asking, like, so that was what Wikipedia said. It's like, is to a non to someone from Great Britain, does it mean something else? Like, do you have like an immediate like, oh, I see what they're doing there? So I did ask on Twitter. The Doctor Who show, no affiliation, but we're related, said, as an Australian, I took it as sort of code for taking the UK back to its roots, make the UK great again.
Sure, 100%. And
that sort of vibe.
Yes, there is a strongman vibe that mentioned to the Russian War of 2030 something. Didn't make me feel very good about considering the state of the world. I don't know a ton about English politics at all.
That's
even
why I was
about,
asking
like,
too.
Like as far as prime minister, I thought they just always came from England. Like, and even like Wales being a separate country, but it's all part of the UK. And but are they the same? And I know Ireland's Ireland. Northern Ireland's part of England. I don't know. It's all fine.
We are ignorant Americans.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't affect really. I think you sort of follow it, but I'm also kind of fascinated by that, and I should probably figure out how that works.
If there was some additional thing, like, it definitely read that way to us, as like, oh yeah, this is like definitely
it's 100% fascist, nationalism, anti-immigrant, xenophobia, and going back to the roots, and that stuff that crops up all over the place in Europe and the United States and plenty of other countries.
Yep. Just to wrap this up, we got a couple more. Thank you everyone for replied. Darren Lodge says, well, if you want a psychological horror, then yes, this show went the distance. But I wish the scenes where Ruby was supposed to be 40, why did she look about 12? She
the
looked
wigs,
good
right?
Up through 40 didn't do it. It was just glasses and a wig.
Now,
like,
she's young, right? Millie Gibson is
young.
like 20 at the most.
20?
Yeah, so
it's hard.
It's hard to make someone look older.
But she did. The character was great. I'm saving Chuck for just a second, but we did get one person that didn't feel this way about it. Sean Grimes said, this one was a dud for me.
Oh, okay.
It's as if they took all of my pet peeves about storytelling, TV, and Doctor Who and put them into one episode. It's not one I will ever even have an urge to rewatch.
Interesting. Well, you know what? That totally makes sense. I know plenty of people that don't like dream sequences in TV shows. I love dream sequences in TV shows. From Twin Peaks to Sopranos, like those are some of my favorite. But there's plenty of people that they hate that.
Sometimes it's a crutch in the writing. Sometimes it actually serves the story. So it's really how it's used.
But it is personal. It is 100%
totally makes sense.
Subjective, personal taste, and I get why people don't like it, and that's why people probably would not like my writing because I lean way more into that world. And it's valid, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Maybe a lot of people like space babies, and that's not the one that we
people
love,
did.
So.
People love space babies, and you know whatever. It's all good.
Freaking monsters. Okay, and our friend Chuck wrote to us an email, which you can email at theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com.
That's right.
If you want to stay off the hellscape that is Twitter. Wrote, "Hey guys, so glad the pod is back. Really missed my parasocial Doctor Who conversations. Am I the only one that talks back to podcasts? No, you're not.
No.
But hey, Chuck, we're talking right to you." Chuck says,
I was doing that the other day. I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about Jerry Seinfeld. It was a very negative take on Jerry Seinfeld, but they were talking about how when Michael Richards did what he did, and then he was on the David Letterman show, and they did that. And do you remember that part? You know, he's trying to apologize for saying those racial slurs.
Right.
And the audience starts laughing, and Jerry Seinfeld just looks to the audience.
Stop laughing. It's not funny.
But anyway, on the podcast, they were saying it was Jay Leno. It was the Jay Leno's The Tonight Show. And I was just going, it was on Letterman. It was on Letterman. So you're not alone.
Did they hear you? Because we hear Chuck, which is cool.
Yeah.
He does say, so 73 yards. First of all, wow, great acting, great directing, atmospheric, creepy, interesting. Definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. Totally enjoyed it. But
okay, there's a but coming.
I like stories to have a purpose, at least unto themselves. I can't see the point of 73 yards. William exists for this before the story starts. The Doctor says he brought Britain to the brink of nuclear war, so he wasn't invoked or created by breaking the fairy circle. So what was the point? Ruby lives an entire lifetime being haunted by this ghost, a ghost who does the exact same set of moves over and over again, yet somehow whenever she's saying causes people to run away screaming or being totally disgusted with her. Out of the 5 interactions with the ghost, Ruby's mom and Kate both turn on her with the most obvious hatred, disgust. Other people just run away screaming. Ruby makes the Mad Jack connection, decides to investigate towards him, wins, lives 40 more years, then dies and somehow comes back again. Why? If we want to do the work for them, that's interesting. We can speculate about breaking the fairy circle, frees Mad Jack, and inhabits William, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, so
but I would just
a little bit more. But I think we
covered that. I would
really
just counter. It's not
point.
literal. It is a metaphor for abandonment issues. Who
and
we really are as people and self-acceptance. And if you get to know the real me, you're going to run away. And that's the way she sees herself. And that's.
But then using the real me to save the world,
Yes. And it's also, again...
And then you continue to live.
Yeah, unexplained things like, why would my mom leave me? Or why did this horrible thing happen? You build stories around them to answer those questions. And that's what this is all about.
I was probably coming at this, maybe not quite as strongly as Chuck felt, but coming into this conversation feeling a little bit that way.
Sure.
And I feel so much more... It feels more whole to me now after talking to you.
I think it's brilliant. And I don't know if Russell T. Davies was adopted but so many of the themes about abandonment and the foundling thing is so well done. And it seems like someone that has like a more like an insight that comes from personal experience, or maybe not. Maybe he's just a great writer.
But
and
it
able to tap
feels
into
that way regardless.
But it just feels so real in that regard. Like, and I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter, I guess, but he's nailing it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was all the responses. Thank you, folks, for replying to us there. I will say, doing a little reading about this as well, Russell T. Davies was asked, what was the woman saying? And he does say this: "You will never know. I'm never going to tell you what she says. It's kind of up to you to sit there and think, well, what could someone say that would make a mother run away from her daughter forever? You could look at it yourself and think, what would make me do that? And once you start to do that, you enter the real horror story, the dreadful things that are being said there, the terrible things. He said that in Radio Times. It's like, that's great. That's, I mean, obviously it's purposeful, but like, I like that his thought is the next step of like, well, what's the audience going to think? And when they put themselves into that position, that's where the horror starts. Wonderful. I know people like have really strong feelings about like Russell T Davies as a writer and storyteller, and they feel the same way about Moffat, and everyone like has their own things. When he's good, he's great.
Yeah, I feel like he does this type of thing really well. But again, it's like, and when it stays this vague, you could listen to me and be like, oh, it's all this, blah, blah, blah. And someone else can have a totally opposite interpretation that's valid. And you could talk to Russell T Davies and he could say, no, it's not about, your personal trauma and, being, it's something else. It doesn't matter, right? It's like, it's just,
it still works.
It's the story is the story. That's why I love, David Lynch never really tells you what his films are about because they're a completely intuitive thing. And once you say something is something, it kills the magic.
Absolutely.
It's better to not know.
Very
anyway,
good. Well,
that's all
now you guys all know how we felt about this. If you want to get in touch with us, you can still do so on Twitter, TODWS show on Twitter. I think it's also the same on Threads, that we're not using it as much.
I don't use. Dan pretty much runs the Twitter account. I run the Instagram account. I try to do it as much as I can. I know you try to do Twitter. It's the email is 100% always going to get read.
Always the old Doctor Who show at gmail.com. We will read those if you want to get
comments on YouTube. We're really good at replying to YouTube. That's so please subscribe to the channel because that's where we post first too, and then the podcast usually follows.
Absolutely. So I guess I'll see you again in another week when we got another story.
Another week.
Another week. It's coming. But all right. And thanks, everybody.
All right, see ya.
Peace. Bye.
Thank you for watching. So what did you think of the story? Let us know in the comments or write us at theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show, please let others know about us. Share it on whatever's left of social media these days. If you want to support me, I've got a number of books available for purchase, including On the Island of the Mad Magician. It's available right now on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. The Wolf and the Well, the sequel to the graphic novel Goblin from Will Perkins and I, was recently announced, and it's available for pre-order today. It really does help a lot. Till next time, be good.
Where's my robot,